Larson.
Here.
Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Stith.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Representative Swanitzer.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Here.
Okay, first we've got a couple re-referrals to finish off. Do we have a preference? Representative Walters?
School safety and security funding,
Okay.
86.
Okay, we're going to do 86 first, school safety and security.
Mr. Chairman, this is a re-referral. We have the good senator here that can speak to it, but I believe this just sets up an account that will help train school district and personnel that are, have the opportunity to carry firearms on district campuses. And there is $100,000 appropriated from the school foundation account to this firearms on school properties account that is created in the bill.
And then what's the,
And then the district's request from the Department of Ed to be reimbursed for the training they provide their employees to be paid out of this account. And the good Senator Colvin's here if I've misrepresented that.
I'm just curious because there's amendments not yet adopted.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I saw it, I don't know what.
Okay, so we can do that later on the floor or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, public comment on it? Senator Kolb, any comments on this bill?
Good to hear, Chairman, 132.
No, 86. Okay. Any other comments on 86? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Move the bill.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
No. Okay, next. Mr. Vice Chair, next re-referral you want to do?
107.
107, it is. E-cigarette and vape material directory.
Mr. Chair, and this comes over, I think, from corporations, and it, the fiscal ask on this is some money to help the Department of Revenue with their program, their software, so that they can certify the substances that the retailers have and that they can have that information available.
362,000 total?
Yeah.
Okay, any public comment on the bill, on the referral? Seeing none, we'll close comments. We have a motion on the bill. Move to pass. Representative Walters, second by Representative Henderson. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
No.
Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. Okay, next.
We've got 54.
54.
Which I think is a revenue bill. And it has a, we'll let the good chairman.
A little bit of money in this one.
Yeah, I might say so. Ready?
Please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Senate File 54. This is a committee bill that has been changed pretty dramatically through the Senate and the House process down here. Started with a 28% exemption or 26 and a $200,000 cap. So the top home that would cap out at that percentage was about 790,000. Okay, so then the Senate, I think, just changed it down to a $200,000 cap. The first year, they made it a 2-year bill, and then they included all the land and all those things the second year. So the House Committee, and Representative Storr talked to you about this, but she convinced the members to go to a percentage base again. And also, this is a 1-year bill, whereas previously it was a 2-year bill. I think Department of Revenue has some updated numbers, 110 million or so for that 1 year. And then I do think, Mr. Chairman, I think perhaps the Department of Revenue can talk about this a little more too, and then I'm going to turn this over to Representative Storr to talk about her amendment and how it works. But I do think you need to probably, and maybe the department can talk about this, is these are all working through the system to make sure it has language that you don't qualify for multiple exemptions and multiple bills that are making its way through. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I turn it over to Representative Storr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of Appropriations. The good news is the Department of Revenue and myself, working with Assessor Schinkel from Teton County, think we're about on the same page in terms of what we think the current bill actually allows for, requires for a fiscal note. The bill does require a backfill for both county and school foundation program, and we believe that to be, if using 2023 dollars, about 110 million or so. The good news is, frankly, we can design the exemption to be whatever fiscal note you want it to be. The main amendment that we did was we changed it to a percentage because that's much more equitable, especially for the folks in Lincoln and Teton County who have seen such high property values go up and increase over the last 3 years. Versus a flat dollar amount really would give people on the lower end of the scale actually more money back than they've actually paid in property tax, at least at the 200,000 value. The Senate actually amended it to move it up to this year, but they kept it as primary owner occupied, but we can't do that. We can only do it on residential structures for this year. So there's still some trickiness as to what we apply, but what we changed was going to a percentage, but also recognizing that because it applies across the board, including second homes, that we would instead put a limit on the fair market value that the exemption would apply to rather than the dollar value of the exemption. And that helps our middle-class owners who really are now living in homes that are valued at $1.5 to $3 million. The value of a 0.17 acre of land in East Jackson is over $1 million right now. So there's a lot of middle-class homes there that are really getting valued quite high. So we were trying to take care of them, but also not kind of give away, break the bank with second homes. So the idea is to limit the fair market value that actually can be calculated for the exemption itself. And so that you can kind of see what that looks like on this handout. It also works differently in places like Lincoln and Teton because our mill levy is lower, and also the percentage of value on land is higher than it is in the rest of the state. So we've tried to look at that. We can certainly figure that out. It will decide whether we're limiting the residential structure or whether we're limiting or calculating the exemption on the residential structure or on the property value for the whole residence. But right now we have it on the residential structure, and we think that can work. And we think that comes in about 110 million. The House I believe House 52 ended up with a 1 year of 125 million. And so that's what we put in as a fiscal note here. Now, HB 52 wasn't heard by the Senate, so we don't expect to see that bill again.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
So that was my question then, Representative Storer. So we've got your copy of 109. We've got this as 125. What's the appropriate amount?
And I believe, thinking about the fact that there will be some increase in values for next year, and we don't know whether HB 45, that will limit what those increases is, will pass or not. So the 125 million allows for some inflation.
So my understanding is House Bill 52 is still alive, and it came out today.
I looked at the calendar just half an hour ago. It just said it referred to,
I just had that
Revenue.
conversation, I don't know, an hour ago.
oh, okay.
I had that. What was that?
Mr. Chairman?
I think, Mr.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I can look it up, but I don't think that bill's going to make it to the finish line, is my,
But that's not the question. It's still alive and active at the moment.
oh, sure it is. It's still on the goldenrod, absolutely, but every bill, for the most part, I think,
So then the question is, of all the bills that are still active, what's the dollar amounts if they all pass?
Mr. Chairman, I think the biggest one is a Senate file sponsored by Senator Kinski's, about $500 million out of the LSRA. You see how the LSRA's dropped down to 500 million, half of that, most of that is that one bill, and that bill is not crossed over. I haven't seen it, so, but it'll eventually be taken off. Senate, or House Bill 52 has just been referred to Senate Revenue, and they're not meeting anymore, and they're past the deadline. So this is a vehicle for a homestead exemption.
So in addition to that, House Bill 3 is still alive, is it not?
Mr. Chairman, I think House Bill 3, and I can look it up here, but I think it stands a pretty good chance of crossing the finish line. This is long-term homeowners, but again, this is a new concept, so I wouldn't, it's passed committee of the whole in the Senate.
And what's the dollar amount of that?
Perhaps,
Looks
do you
like
know that?
combined, it's roughly 38 million?
So as I recall, the original fiscal note on HB 3 was like 10.8
Yeah,
million.
about 10 million. No backfill on that.
Right.
So there's
and-
no fiscal impact to the goldenrod, just a local
I've got
government.
16.8 fiscal year 2026, and then 17.3, was that reduced down to 10.5? Is that right?
It's about a little over 10 million. I'm looking at the fiscal note for 2026.
What else is still out there?
Mr. Chairman, so House Bill 3, we talked about the property tax for long-term homeowners. The refund program is still out there, but you've already funded that 20 million in the governor's budget. And all we did is add another tier. Now, whether that bill, that program is still going to be alive, whether or not that bill survives or not. And I'm just looking it up here. It's placed on general file in the Senate. So that one's still alive, but no more fiscal impact. House Bill 45, no fiscal impact, that's the cap bill.
103?
And then House Bill 103, I think that has not made it. Let me look, Mr.
It also wasn't heard.
Referred, that was a week ago.
Yeah, it's referred to revenue in the Senate, and it's not been reported out. And then
I think that's it.
House Bill 134 has made it, and that is a deferral program with a very small, Representative Lawley's bill is still alive out there. It's, I can look it up right here. That bill is referred to Senate Appropriations. It's got a small appropriation in there.
And then Senate File 68, that's in front of you, right?
68 died today in committee on a 5-4 vote. It's not been reported out yet. I think there were some delays on that. And then the Senate File 54 is what you have, and that's all that's out there.
Well, there's
So
Senate
really,
File 89, like, we have that right here, I think.
Senate File 89,
That's the veterans tax.
we never saw that bill. I don't know. Never came to our committee.
And yeah, obviously went to a different committee because it was re-referred to us. So
Not
that,
sure where it went.
it doubles the veterans tax exemption.
Transportation, yeah, there you go.
And what's the fiscal impact on that? I think that's
8 million.
8 million biennial, right? Okay. Any public comment on this? On the re-referral? Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment.
Move the bill to pass.
We'll do pass. Are there any amendments? Seeing none. Roll call.
Representative Henderson,
No.
Representative Larson,
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith,
No.
Representative Walters. Representative Swanitzer,
No.
Chairman Nicholas.
No.
Okay. What was that vote? Doesn't really matter, I guess.
No, it doesn't matter. Okay, next.
Thank you.
Next one. Re-referral on federal lands. All right?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, this one has a $50 million. So what this does is give management, the legislature, and if the legislature is not in session, gives management council authority to intervene, if that's the right word, on federal land issues, and can borrow, is the term they use, borrow up to $50 million from the LSRA. I don't know when you say borrow, if that means then the management council has to pay it back, but,
The members personally?
huh?
The members personally.
Maybe. Maybe, but then legislature may appropriate funds to repay the amount borrowed.
Nay.
May.
Okay, any public comment on re-referral of Senate File 13? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. A motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, move to pass.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would go on page 4, line 5, and I would delete the $50 million and insert $5,000.
Okay, everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just for discussion, I know during our committee hearings in December and January, I think we added $1 million to the FNRPA account in the budget on top of the $1 million that was already there, giving $2 million. But then we spent $850,000, I thought, funding something, hiring. I apologize, it escapes me exactly what we spent $850 of it on. So just
Two attorneys.
2 attorneys for the County Commissioners Association, I believe. So all well and good. So just a discussion about whether 5,000 is the appropriate number, what we expect. Obviously, I think all of us have the same goal of wanting to be able to make sure that our local cities, counties, and towns
Well, we
can.
just gave them 2 attorneys to do all the litigation.
I don't think it's the amount, I think it's the structure. That somehow the legislature is going to determine, it's not for them to share with the counties, it's for the legislature to come and say that they have standing and to intervene in on their own behalf in fighting federal issues. If this was providing language to then go two different paths, which that's always been the challenge, and that's why county commissioners are so important, is because they have standing. Legislature doesn't. I don't know how we grant that upon ourselves.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I understand it, thank you for the clarification. It sounds like the structure of this bill is that management council would be the party filing lawsuits in court, which I think was done in the 1990s unsuccessfully against Governor Geringer. But yeah, so that's the main problem with the bill. All right. Thank you very much for the clarification. That helps me.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, any other comments? All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Any other amendments? As amended, roll call.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters. Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
Jackie? Switch my vote
Do we know?
to a no.
Done.
Anyone else want to change their vote? Okay, next. Are we on 89 now? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Veterans Property Tax ad valorem exemption amount, to be technical, property tax exemption, Senate File 89. This just doubles the annual exemption from $3,000 to $6,000 for veterans. And so then the estimated cost will be a doubling of the 4.1 million to an estimated 8.2 million for the biennium.
So is this ongoing?
It would be ongoing.
Any comments? Please, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Smith from the Wyoming Military Department, appearing on behalf of the Veterans Commission. This bill does change the veterans exemption. It's been in law for decades, basically. We've touched it almost every session in the last few years, trying to tweak it. You may recall it had a bunch of separate military actions. We tried to broaden it out. A couple of things important in this bill is it does not apply to all veterans. It only applies to those who have a campaign or expeditionary medal or one of the named conflicts or disabled veterans. It also requires the veteran to have spent the previous 3 years as a Wyoming resident. Those are prerequisites for it. Currently, it's $3,000 of assessed value. That equates to essentially $225, depending on the county, off your tax bill. It was last changed in 2007. I feel old because I was around here then. It went from 2,000 to 3,000. This doubles it to 6,000 because of the intervening 17 years have changed assessed values, in particular, as this committee heard just tonight about what's happened to property assessments. I would notice for the committee on in section 2 on page 2, there is a cap, depending on what happens in the budget, of $11.54 million. It's in the governor's budget. This adds $8 million to double it. Essentially, it applies to approximately something on the order of 15,000 to 16,000 veterans of the 47,000 veterans we have in Wyoming. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any of the committee's questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, I made a mistake. It is only for the next 2 years. It expires in 2027, is the way I read it. So just wanted to make that clarification. I apologize.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
So the restrictions or the, whatever we want to call them on, in order to qualify, are they in statute? They're not in the bill, but they must be in statute.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, in 3913-105A, it has all those restrictions.
Okay, thank you, just curious.
Representative
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Representative Larson.
Move to pass.
Move do pass. Any amendments?
I thought you said we could change.
Oh, that's-
Can we change the amount or the, Mr. Chairman, my question is, can we change, we can change the.
Any dollar amount?
Any dollar amount, I would move that. Mr. Chairman, my proposal would be to change the amount from 8,200,000 to 4,200,000.
You could change it.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh. But, so, Mr. Chairman, so I think, I want to understand before I come up with this idea for an amendment, is when we talk about 3,000 or 6,000, that is how much of a deduction you can get on the overall property value, right? So they're allowing you a $6,000 deduction off from your property value, and then your tax would be assessed to that.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, Brenda Hinson, Department of Revenue. So first and foremost, it does not expand the program. For those that would qualify for the program at the 3,000 assessed dollars, this just simply gives them a larger benefit. 3,000 assessed dollars multiplied by the mill levy is what the tax savings is. So it's, as stated, $220, $225. So now that would go up to $450 approximately. Now, you can also use this on your motor vehicle license plates if you don't use it on your primary residence, and that takes it from $90 under current law with the 3,000 to about $180 that you could save on motor vehicle at the 6,000 amount.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to pass.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
And that too.
Oh, Dan, do you have something there?
Mr. Chairman, no, just call for roll call. That's,
Yeah, roll call.
what am I?
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters. Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. Okay, next, we've got. What's next?
I think we're done with is that all our referrals, Jackie?
Yes.
Aren't you proud of us?
Very.
Yep. Here's our mark on that. Come on up. Senator Cole. We passed that. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Appropriations Committee, before you is ARPA Bill 4, the only surviving ARPA bill. Mr. Chairman, would you wish me to do a high-level overview, or would you, or do you
No,
need
go ahead,
that?
please. Yeah.
It's a little bit. This is sections 1, pages 1 to 3, boilerplate definitions, sections 2, 3, pages 4 to 22, prior year's appropriations. They were brought only to de-appropriate prior to appropriations with accordance with December 2023 letter from the Chief Executive's Office. Total de-appropriation is $52.7 million. These are rough numbers, Mr. Chairman, liable to change. Section 4, pages 23 to 26, subsection A reverts funds de-appropriated in sections 2 and 3. Page 23, lines 2 and 4, subsection C reappropriates those funds in any unappropriated funds. Total of $54.3 million to OSLI 4, $20 million to backfill Water One account for matching funds for eligible water and sewer projects program, and $34.3 million to the following programs: inflation grant funding for health and human services, capital construction, eligible water and sewer projects, and local government support projects, and further eligible water and sewer projects. I might add, Mr. Chairman, that, and members of the committee, that health and human services, capital construction was brought into an equal level with the first section section I just read, section 4, as equal footing for appropriations to be appropriated by the governor. So I think I'll.
Where is that at again, please?
There was an amendment, Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson. The amendment came out of the Senate, and it was a Kinski amendment, last amendment. Or, excuse me, it was a Dan Dockstetter, Senator Dockstetter's amendment.
Got it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So Senator Cole, just to kind of get my head around what's going on in this bill, how closely does this bill resemble the Senate position or represent the Senate position of the ARPA funds and the budget bill? Are there significant differences between what the Senate position was? Because you had an amendment there on the Senate side that was real similar to what we did on the House side. And looking at this, it looks pretty similar. I'm just trying to figure out where the differences might be, if any.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, I think there might be some resemblance to it. This is the Senate's, when we worked through the bill position, what happened was a last moment amendment to the budget. So I can't really speak to that. Maybe the governor's office could lend information on that question.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Hebert, Director of the Wyoming State Budget Department. Basically, this is the position that originally came out of the Joint Appropriation Committee, with the exception of some small things. One of them is the eligibility for the highway projects. The original discussion that was presented to the Senate Joint Appropriation Committee was the word priority. That has been taken out. So this is similar to that of what we discussed when we had the conversation here in the Joint Appropriations Committee, where the targets are expressed in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For example, on page 25, you can see item 5 would be for provision of ARPA funds for the state budget department for allowable administrative expenses. In your bill, you specified those dollar amounts. In this bill, it just provides the governor the flexibility, which really we worked diligently on at the tail end of the conversation to provide the flexibility to be able to be nimble enough. But you can see those priorities are naturally water, and then water 2 was added, if you recall. And then you got health and human services. You've got highway projects. You've got administrative costs for the dashboard and the compliance portal.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up from Mr. Hibbard. Eligible highway projects, I see that now on page 25, line 6. This is direct to ARPA, so can you describe for me what an eligible highway project would look like?
Sure. Basically, the first thing I'd like to share is the rule set that's along the line of the eligible projects. In the latest final rule from the U.S. Treasury, it allowed a project funding up to $10 million, up to 1/3 of the total value of the ARPA direct funds, which is $1 billion, so $333 million. We're not dealing with that expanse of dollars. This would be a project that WIDOT would have for road interchange, similar. So what this would really do is, if you recall my testimony earlier, and when we operated CARES, at the 11th hour, we had positioned ourselves to be able to be nimble enough to use the Department of Corrections salary so that we actually were able to shift nimbly at the tail end of the process to be able to fully obligate and in CARES expend the funds. So this would be a provision that would allow us to be nimble after we've gone through Water 1, Water 2, Health and Human Services, got the administrative costs, and we could actually be able to position ourselves to obligate on highway projects.
So Senator Kolb, I want to track through your priorities if I may. So on page 23, if I'm tracking right, the first one is for Health and Human Services capital construction. 2 would be that capturing that water account stuff, Water 1, Water 2. Then 3 is offset matching funds that qualified or had included local matching funds. 4 is eligible highway projects. 5 is state budget department allows for administrative costs that the budget departments, we've known that that's a good way. One of the other areas that we know that is a good way to, a good place to use ARPA dollars is for mental health projects, and that's not in here anywhere. And we've had that conversation in JC and had it in the House bill. What conversation and how do you feel about that?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I have no issue with that. The question is priority, when could it get done? Are they shovel ready? I think those are some of the things that were talked about. I believe this allows the governor the flexibility. If there's a project that they have that can be completed and signed in the appropriate amount of time, that very well could be a project that they do.
Any other questions?
Okay.
So what I'm curious about, Kevin, is that, I mean, you said it's similar to what came out of GAC, but it's clearly worded much differently and more extensive and more, I mean, the priorities are set up in a more concrete fashion.
Mr. Chairman, this is flexible to the governor, the way that this is crafted. What came out of the Joint Appropriations Committee was a couple of tables that provided specificity, and I will use the State Budget Department, for example, the ARPA compliance portal and the dashboard work, and that was specific numbers that were added together, $1,329,000. There was specificity in that. And this, it just allows the governor to be able to address those issues in a non-prioritized fashion. Now, with that understood, there's advantages that the state of Wyoming has. Take water projects. If we use the ARPA dollar, then that money comes back, and we've heard this conversation, into Water 1 and Water 2. So basically, you would remove the federal entanglements on water projects and be able to use that money as the state of Wyoming would wish. And that's also true on the state budget department expenditures, because, for example, me, when I do my time card, I will record that, and I will expend ARPA dollars rather than general fund dollars. So anticipate the state budget department reverting funds on all the programs, just not ARPA direct, but all of them, IIJA, BEAD, CARES, that's SHIF's basically said, but let's say capital project funds. So there's a couple of advantages in a couple of these arenas, and then you got the health stuff and the roads. But you had specificity in the appropriations, not with priority, but you set aside some money on the front end of the conversation.
Mr. Chairman. So, Senator Kolb, with what I've heard you allude to, and I think what I heard Kevin causes me to want to ask another question. What I heard from you is if the governor found something in mental health, he could divert it that way. And then I think, because this is a little bit of a change from what we had in the House, and then Kevin is saying we don't have that specificity, but we're just, in this bill, we're just kind of pointing and say these are important things to us. Is there?
Mr. Chairman, I can
go ahead, Kevin.
Point you out to LSO 493, the original House Bill 118. And if you go to page 23, and I'll just show those, American Rescue Plan, it had mental health and ARPA programs 1. Now, these aren't a priority, they were just mission. $10 million, colleges, $219,916, eligible water sewer projects, $27 million, ARPA projects, inflationary costs, $15 million, administrative funding, staffing costs, which would be the AWACS for the State Budget Department, $639,000, administrative fund grants and services, which is basically for us to wrap all this together in one place.
So that's gone out of this bill, that kind of, that appropriating, it's just, so my question is it appears the exercise that you're trying to do is just say, we don't want to lose those dollars. We don't want to send them back. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, absolutely. Absolutely. This was developed in a way that gave the governor maximum flexibility to spend the money so we don't lose the money. That is, I would think you've represented that point well.
So would there be any problem in your mind if we just said, let's just give the governor the authority to, I mean, boom, if that's what we're trying to do, can we do that just in, or do you feel that we do that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Larson, our Representative Larson.
Lloyd.
Okay. All right, I'll be more specific, more specificity. There's a clawback provision in here that has to be dealt with. I think that this represents the work of, frankly, hopefully a combined effort between the Senate and the House on what we can do together and to come up with some sort of a plan that represents who we are as bodies. And I think that was the attempt, on top of working with the governor, to give the governor flexibility to expend all final dollars possible. And I think you might have some more to add.
Mr. Chairman, could you explain, where's that clawback? What is that we're looking at? What page?
Mr. Chairman, if you remember, it was the original ARPA bills, and there was specificity in section 5, I believe it was section 5. And if you look at page 5, you can see how they put that nomenclature in there, so where we can say, of these, basically what you're doing, you're repealing the prior authorizations, and then you're providing us the flexibility once that is cold. Once we have brought that in, then we have the redeployment effort without priority, but with flexibility.
I'm not sure how you can say without priority, when you say that priority 1 is more important than 2 and 3, and priority 2 is more important than 3 and 4. And my recollection is when they testified, certain things needed to be funneled or appropriated immediately in order to accomplish them. Whereas, and you have money constantly rolling in as well. And so you've got a kind of a combination of events. So then how do you, as money rolls in, how do you then reprioritize under this bill and meet all the timelines and deadlines that you have?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the provision in this is a September obligation period, so we have that information in hand, and we've had that conversation about what the advantages on the front end and advantages on the back end of this would be. So then what we have is at that point in time, we have the amount of money that is not obligated. And then those dollars that are not obligated through this process, beginning in as soon as we have the authority, and even now, we've already started that. Then we've identified those areas that you specified that you'd like to include, which is Health and Human Services, which is Water 1 and Water 2. And then we have that position for us to make those obligations so that we can go through between September and December and see that this is properly obligated, knowing that it has to be expended by December 31st, 2026.
So you make that moment now at September 1st, right?
Yes.
That's page 23, line 15.
And then, Mr. Chairman, there's also, that we have to do inside of that, is once we have the obligations, and we've identified that correctly, we still want to go through the process of contacting all the agencies and making sure that they assure us that what they have obligated, they'll actually expend. And we did that process through the CARES, and we were very successful at that as well, because just because you have it obligated doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get it spent. So we'll be doing that exercise as well. So in between the window of September and December, really between now and then, we'll have an understanding of how much we have to redeploy, and then we'll redeploy it in that fashion that's been outlined in those programs.
Mr. Chairman, so we have unappropriated and reappropriated, correct?
Yes. You have obligated and you have unobligated, and then the unobligated becomes redeployed.
Redeployed, that was the word. But couldn't we just say that the governor has the authority to deploy and redeploy any?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that there's still necessity to deliver upon the original ARPA bills and say, this is associated with those prior bills, have that repealed, and then be able to have it redeployed to the governor.
Okay.
But once we've gone through the process of establishing what we have to do with the previous bills, then yes, basically what we're saying here is that we're asking that.
Well, that's where I'm getting to, is over where we clean
Okay.
everything up. But instead of identifying, so I'm trying to understand the purpose of identifying Roman 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if we're just trying to get it up the
Mr.
door.
Chairman, if I understand the question correctly, rather than have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can simply say governor has the authority to redeploy.
Right.
So, Mr. Chairman. That brings me to the question that I'm trying to resolve, is how do we give him the authority to redeploy without accidentally taking money away from programs that are still ongoing that he still wants to have in place? Basically, April 1st, we want him to be able to start gathering up anything that he sees as available, working with his various executive branch agencies, but not unintended consequence of the legislature take money away from folks that he wants it to remain there.
Mr. Chairman, we're okay with having the list 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys can decide if you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with the flexibility to just make sure that at the end of the game that we have the ability to be nimble. It's not, and I believe that there's an obviousness to the expectations of what we would do with the money. Certainly, water would be one of those. Health and human services would be another one of those. Administration would certainly be that. And if you want to consider roads as a fallback position, that would also be included.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Help me understand, please, the rationale for not including health and family services in the list of priorities. And then, I mean, if we've had this money appropriated, that's being de-appropriated, 2.105 million, since 2023. So what have we been doing with this since?
Mr. Chairman, we are trying our best to not have the word priority in this. If you'd like us to work toward a program, by all means. But in the tail end of the process, we need to have the flexibility to be able to proceed. And there's a differential between how you go about it. There are complicated projects out there that we can't simply get over the fence. The capital projects fund, we had a conversation about the portion in that we had designated for B with ETS. We couldn't get it done. So now we have that being redeployed to the libraries on the capital projects aspect of it. But what we're seeking is the ideas that you'd like to have us focus on, we'll focus on those. There's obvious ones out there that I've spoken about, but in the end of the day, we do not want to have the word priority. We want to be able to say, here's how we'd like to have you, but ultimately the governor has the discretion to make sure that we fully obligate ARPA direct funds.
Mr. Chairman, I think what we've done, or we've evolved, we used to be nice, now we're not. No, but I guess on these ARPA dollars, we just see the value of getting this last stuff out the door without giving any even suggestion that, and so that's why I was asking about 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't have a problem with using it for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I think it just suggests a priority. And so if we do away with that, then doesn't your office, the governor's office, then have flexibility to still use it for all of those?
Mr. Chairman, we have that flexibility in Senate File 132, and if you author this exactly the way the Senate does, the game is finished. Otherwise, we get into a pinball back and forth. So I believe that there's flexibility in this, and we will do everything that we can to make sure those things are served. But it does provide flexibility. It has suggestions about how we move forward.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
It'd be nice to have a copy of what we're looking at.
Mr. Chairman, so I think Senator Kolb first had something he wanted to say, I think.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just to address the committee, this was developed working with the governor. It wasn't, an adversarial development. It was together. And this is how it came out. So it wasn't done in a vacuum. Just tell everybody in the committee, this was done as a cooperative process to get this document how it is, just to give some background. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman? For Mr. Hibbard or Senator Kolb, so on page 25, line 15, we have this trigger date of September 1, 2024, and because this bill is effective immediately, I'm just trying to figure out the significance of what happens on September 1st, because to me, it looks like the significance of that is that we have all these priorities going, but if, as of September 1st, you haven't allocated everything, then after September 1st, there are no more priorities, and the governor can just do what he wants. Is that the effect of this subsection C?
Mr. Chairman, so if we just done away with that September 1st and just capitalize that, so you can start using unobligated funds now,
So isn't
right?
the amendment take away page 24 to 27?
So this is the engrossed version. Should have all the amendments in there,
That's what I'm curious, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
right? But do you see what we're saying, Kevin? So that's kind of what we run in when we was putting it in the budget bill. We kind of put these dates in there, and then the governor's office kind of come back and says, why do we need, if we got the authority, that's just give us the flexibility to use them as they come available. And now this September 1st date was important to us in our first House bill because we designated the 10 million to mental health and and then after, if we couldn't get it out the door by September 1st, then it diverted. But where we don't have a designated amount, if we do away with the date, you guys can just start doing it.
Thanks, guys.
Hank.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you're correct. So these are reappropriated to the office of the governor as of the effective date of the act. And then you're correct that September 1st. I would note a couple of things. Page 24 on Romanets 1 and 2, those are given priority over the other 3 paragraphs there. So you can see that on page 20. Go ahead.
Commissioner, I apologize for interrupting, but why do you need this paragraph C on page 25? Why do you even need it? What function does it perform?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the intent of that was to, if they couldn't obligate these funds for this, that the governor has maximum flexibility as of September 1st, 2024. If that wasn't in there, the governor would be beholden to what was appropriated to him prior in 2022 and 2023, and then he would be beholden to these 5 priorities. And so this one gives them maximum flexibility on September 1st too, and I think the executive branch can kind of give more
Mr. Chairman,
color to that.
I guess I'm more confused than ever now, because I thought our goal was that we've got these reversions coming in of unused funds for ARPA. If the governor can't do anything until September 1st, that seems like we waited too long. So I don't quite understand I just don't get it.
Mr. Chairman, Hank, so on page 23 on line 17 and 18, if we got rid of subject to the following conditions, does that take away the prioritization?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, so in the original version of the bill, it said in the following priority order. Now, only paragraphs 1 and 2 are prioritized over 3 through 5. And you can see that on page 24, lines 2 through 6, and then page 24, lines 16 through 20. That is where you see that priority of paragraphs 1 and 2 over 3 through 5. Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to Representative Stith, the governor's office gets access to these funds as of the effective date of this act. You can see that on page 23, subsection A, and it's for those priorities as lined out in paragraphs 1 through 5. After that, the idea is to give him any unappropriated, unobligated funds that may, because right now, you deappropriate a set amount in sections 2 and 3 from 22 and 23 appropriations. This is then saying if funds cannot be obligated by that date, then the governor can redeploy them in a manner that he sees fit to get them obligated and expended.
So Hank, if we've done away with that priority, if we've done away with that priority language for 1 and 2, now where there was no priority for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, then you wouldn't need September 1st. Yes or no? Do you?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I think the chairman's correct. I think the executive branch can opine on their preference, but I believe that.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, on page 24, the last sentence, 19, eligible project and programs not identified in this subsection. Okay, so there goes that. Now we're back to where we were. We want to bring the money in. We're going to work diligently on what you've suggested. And then on September 1st, we're going to pull the trigger and we're going to make certain that all those funds are fully obligated and we have that process in between that I've discussed.
Got it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Did you do this, Hank?
Close public
Did you do
comment.
this?
We have a motion on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, move to pass.
Second.
Moving second, discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Find the right page here, Mr. Chairman. I would move on page 24, line 2, starting with the word funding, and through the remainder of, from there through the end of line 6, I would move to delete all of that language. And then I would move down to line 16, starting with the word funding, and through line 20, delete all of that language. And this is just giving those paragraphs the priority. And so if I get a second, I'll finish. So with that, then all of the items that are listed with an equal weighting is how I would describe it. And there's no priority in any of the 5 ideas that are suggested. That's my conceptual amendment, I think, exacted.
Question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. As amended. Any other amendments?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 25, we'll go to line 7.
Page.
Excuse me, page 25, line 7, excuse me, my apologies. Again, page 25, line 7. I would like to insert, and then we would renumber just below that, but the insertion would be to include mental health.
So it's a conceptual amendment.
Conceptual amendment.
Second. With conforming language. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. So, any other amendments? Seeing none, as amended, roll call.
Representative Henderson?
Aye.
Representative Larson?
Aye.
Representative Sherwood? Aye. Representative Stith?
Aye.
Representative Walters?
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer?
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas?
Aye. Okay. Does that clear the deck? Jackie?
It does.
We should have done that. Okay. Go ahead, Mike. That amendment drafted. Does have an